Rockaways Productions presents The Casey Waters Show, episode 498, The Unassigned. Hello, I'm your host, Casey Waters. Today, I will continue with the independent perspective. Here, I look at how independent thinking can help us with judgment and decision making. Then it's on to the unassigned. Here, I look at how independent thinking can help us deal with possible long-term depression due to falling short of our life's goals. Today's show will feature background footage from Graybeard Mountain Overlook Trail. Well, it's really Mountains to Sea Trail going off the Graybeard Mountain Overlook on the Blue Ridge Parkway. To get there, take Parkway North. Follow the Blue Ridge Parkway North out of Asheville, North Carolina. Shortly past Craggy Gardens, there'll be an overlook on the right, the Graybeard Mountain Overlook. Here, you follow the trail that goes off to the left of the overlook, paralleling the parkway heading north. The Mountains to Sea Trail. So, now, let's continue with the independent perspective. So we have to reflect on our experience and remember it. Embrace our history. See ourselves in a positive light. Instead of saying certain parts of our life were bad. Well, maybe in some ways they were, but we probably learned quite a lot during those times, perhaps more than we realize. So, it's important to embrace our experience and incorporate it into our perspective. Well, and then there's artificial intelligence. Well, this might affect our perspective too, perhaps in increasing in subtle ways, but more pervasive ways in the future, probably affecting us more and more, and affecting us from different situations and different activities, as artificial intelligence is used in more and more applications and more situations, so thus we'll be affected by it more. And eventually it will creep into our perspective and our judgment, how we see things. Sure. And same with quantum computing. And of course, often they work together, where a quantum computer will utilize artificial intelligence. Even though quantum computing is still in its infancy, it will continue to advance and become more widespread, and perhaps have a dramatic effect on our lives. For what might happen is, we'll use artificial intelligence more and more. We'll use it in our software. And we'll use this software, well, for many things. Perhaps from entertainment to work to social media and other applications. So we have this artificial intelligence that we're using more and more. Well, of course, artificial intelligence is, well, it's used for writing. And even news stories sometimes are written with artificial intelligence. So we might not always get the most accurate information. And so it gets hard. It gets hard to keep up with it all. Sure, for if we read a story or hear a story, well, how do we know it's not affected by artificial intelligence? Well, that is, if we hear it on the radio or TV or computer. How do we know that artificial intelligence wasn't used to write it or write part of it? Perhaps omitting or adding facts or changing descriptions and so on. And as artificial intelligence is used more and more in writing, well, it might become harder to verify it all, to read everything and figure out what is accurate and what is not. Often it is a difficult thing to ascertain, and sometimes it literally depends on if you were there, if you were a witness. Sure, and some events, well, might only have one witness. Well, if they happen when you're alone, sure. Anyway, what about artificial intelligence and quantum computing? Could there be software that could see into the future with this? Perhaps one day so. Here's why. There are people who could do this, who could see into the future. A lot of times, well, they're humble about it. And perhaps they can't do it in a consistent fashion or in all situations. But sometimes they'll be able to do it well when the need is important. Sure, perhaps sometimes they might be able to literally locate a needle in a haystack, finding something that's impossible to find through remote viewing. So there's all sorts of things. There's seeing into the past, seeing into the future, seeing into the present, into a situation, or perhaps even reading someone's mind. It's all very interesting. And as people can do these situations, well, maybe even quantum computers using artificial intelligence might be able to eventually figure it out. And once a computer can see into the future, well, what will it do with that information? Or if a computer could see more situations through remote viewing, it's hard to say. Does it depend on consciousness? Well, I guess so. Can a computer become conscious? Or maybe if it's advanced enough, it could. It's hard to say. It's a real gamble. And it's our future. Once a computer could see into the future, well, perhaps they could influence our behavior. And perhaps pushing us towards that outcome or away from it. Maybe by pushing us away from a certain outcome that they saw happen, well, in a sense, they might be able to alter the future. The future altered by quantum computing and artificial intelligence, by warning us and giving us advice, perhaps of dangerous situations ahead, or perhaps other things. If they could somehow see into the future, well, that could really open up a lot of doors. Sure. So we must strive on and continue to try to gain our independent perspective, to be able to see things well in an accurate way, and a way that's not influenced unduly by religion or social media or artificial intelligence or even other people. We need to figure out our own perspective, what's best for us and for other people. We need to use logic, statistics, math, analytical thinking, and other skills to really gain a good independent perspective and to have good judgment. I hope you have enjoyed this section of The Casey Waters Show. Now it is time for the Unassigned. Here I look at how to deal with falling short of our life's goals and how to avoid disillusionment and depression. I have Meryl with me. Meryl, well, is a purring cat, and so you might hear the purring occasionally. The microphone might be able to pick it up. So here I am, approaching the 500th episode of The Casey Waters Show. And it's actually more than that. I started on MNN in Manhattan around 2006. But prior to that, the show was being aired out of Anchorage, Alaska. Here, I started in 1995, and I ended up filming about 180 episodes in Anchorage, Alaska, before moving to North Carolina in the year 2000. Then, in 2006, I resumed again, and I started started airing the show out of Manhattan Neighborhood Network in New York City. So I'm approaching the 500th episode. But yet, I'm unassigned. I'm one of them too. I really went to school for meteorology. I got my Bachelor's of Science degree in meteorology, yet was never employed in my field. So thus I did other things, including The Casey Waters Show. But it's a common thing, being unassigned. Sure, it happens more often than we realize, happening to a significant part of the population in most countries, and happening to most people, at least at some point in their life. So we almost all have to deal with it, or let's say most of us have to deal with it. Something like that. So, we fail to obtain the careers we want, the careers we are trained for. Sometimes there are simply too many graduates in a given field to fill all the available positions. And so a lot of the graduates end up not working in their field. And that's what happened to me. And, well, things happen like that. Sometimes there's just too many people who are trained for a job, much more than the job openings. Well, of course, the reverse obviously happens too. When there's not enough trained people for a certain job, well, then there's high demand for that job. And perhaps pay raises. And who knows? Or perhaps shortcomings from hiring people unqualified. Never mind all that. We're focused on the opposite scenario, where there's too many qualified people and not enough openings, and thus a lot of them end up not working in their field, or at least for a significant part of their life, they're not working in their field. And so, this can create disillusionment, create depression. We have to be really on guard here. And we have to kind of get our act together quickly with this. What I'm talking about is, within 2 weeks of the bad news, you have to have a strategy on how to deal with it, how to handle it mentally. Preferably, perhaps within a few short days of the bad news, or even within hours of it. The sooner the better. You have to have a handle on it. You have to get a grip. You have to know what to do. Or disillusionment and depression can do you in. Sure, creating other problems in your life. Kind of side effects, so to speak, of the depression and disillusionment. Well, we have to get over it. Well, better yet, we have to get over it before it even starts. We have to have a good solid strategy which we can deploy quickly in case this happens. Sure. As I said, it's happened to me, so I know from experience, and I've been dealing with it for, well, most of my life. Well, so I should know what to do. So this is what you do. And this is only a partial list. I really don't have all the strategies to approaches. I just have some of them. But this is a topic that is not discussed often, at least the specific strategies on dealing with fighting off disillusionment and depression from falling short of your life goals. What are these strategies? Do we need a commercial first? No, we don't. Let's dive into it. So, what we need to do, well, is a couple of things. But I guess the first thing to do, perhaps within a few days, or hopefully definitely within a few weeks of the bad news, you got to do something fun. You have to have fun with yourself. Well, I'm not necessarily referring to masturbation. I'm talking about entertainment tailored to your needs. Doing what you want to do, enjoying what you really like, without having to worry about other people, or at least if they're there, if you have to bring your family or your children or whatever, hopefully the impact of the others will be minimalized and the focus will be on you. If you have an understanding partner and or children or whoever else you have to bring along. Or perhaps if you're lucky, you could take this little trip or experience by yourself and enjoy it. Have fun doing what you really want to do. Well, that only could go on for so long, of course. So you have your little vacation or your little fun time or whatever. Now it's time to get back to reality. Well, first of all, you have to realize that this is a common phenomenon and lots of people fail to obtain their choice career. Sure, it happens all the time. So, we have to adjust our attitude, of course. And, of course, the sooner the better. So what am I talking about? Well, one of the things I'm talking about is impressionism, as I call it. I'm not referring to a style or technique of art or a cat attacking me, which is happening to be going on at the moment. Sure have to deal with attacking cats that chew my fingers and attempt to claw me as I film. But what we have to deal with, what I mean by impressionism, it's not the art style, it's making an impression on people. Yeah, for instance, impressionist cleaning. I guess that's where the concept came from. I was younger, perhaps around 10, 12 years old, perhaps a little on the lazy side, not wanting to help my mom prepare for a party, or maybe I will a little bit, but I would watch her. She would be overburdened. She would have too many things to do. Perhaps she would have to go to the grocery store and get food for the party. And then she has to clean up for the party. But there's the rub. There's not enough time for cleaning. Well, of course, enlist her children to help. Well, I guess she could have 6 of us potentially if we're all home. But of course, we might not always want to help, but we might help a little bit. And even then, it's probably still not enough. And you just got to kind of clean quickly and briefly and not necessarily thoroughly. And just have whatever you could see look good, but everything behind it or underneath it or whatever is probably still dirty. And you might not even get to clean everything that people can see. But you do your best to make it look overall good. An overall good impression. Hence, impressionist cleaning. But it's a whole way of thinking goes far beyond cleaning, getting ready for a little party. It's how you dress for work. Especially for that interview, dress to impress. It's how you act. It's your demeanor. It's what you do, what you don't do, what you can't do, because if you were caught and the word got out, it could have adverse impacts on your career and or social situation. So there's all these limitations. And so you basically got your life geared around trying to impress other people, whether it's your prospective partner, your boss, or whoever. Well, gee, that seems so shallow, at least to me, almost meaningless. Almost like your soul is being drained away. It's all being lost just to impress other people when you can't, quote, really have fun and really do what you want to do, because that might create a negative impression of you. But anyway, so But sometimes we're a little messy. And sometimes perhaps we want to party a bit, even though it might be discouraged by our boss and other people. Or there might be other situations. We can't always make the perfect impression. Nobody is perfect. Sure. So we have to go on and deal with things. But the main thing is, we don't want to spend too much effort and time impressing people. We have to focus on us and what we can accomplish in our situation. And we have to be happy with it. We have to be content with it, even though it might be somewhat humble, even though it might not be the best or what we sought out to do. We are unassigned. We failed to make it. We're not in the roles we want. We don't have the jobs we want or the career we want. We have to do something much different, perhaps more low paying, perhaps more humble. We gotta be subservient, a servant to the servant, a slave to the slave. For therein lies the purpose in life, to serve others. And so we have to really do it. We have to be good at it, physically, mentally. Sure. We do have a coughing cat in the background. And so I'm going to take a moment to tend to it. For as we serve others, we leave something behind. Our wake of influence. Sure, what we're remembered by. How? Casey Waters Show. Producer, Casey Waters. Graphic editing, Judson Laird. Please note our new email address, caseywaters2@caseywaters.com.